Welcome to the Front Porch Lessons. I'm Mark Morgan. Won't you pull up a chair and settle into that old front porch swing if you got one? And let's spend a few quiet minutes together. Around here, we believe some of life's greatest lessons don't come from boardrooms or textbooks. They come from old barns, worn out tractors, creaky screen doors, and sometimes from an old hunting dog lying on a weathered porch. Today's lesson is called The Old Hunting Dog. There's an old hunting dog not too far from here where I live, and every time I see him, I learn something. Now, if you meet him 30 years ago, you'd have sworn he had springs instead of legs. That rascal could hit the ground a running before your coffee could ever get cooled off. He'd tear through briars that would stop a tractor, splash across a creek without slowing down, you know, and he'd even open up with that deep, brawling voice and rolled through the Arkansas hills like church bells on Sunday morning. Folks didn't need a map. He didn't need any of the GPS or anything. They just listened. His ears stood tall. His eyes were sharp as a hawk. And he had enough energy to make three younger dogs look lazy. Back then, nobody imagined he'd ever get old. But at the time, has a way of catching up with everything that breathes. Now he rises a little slow. You can almost hear the stiffness in his old joints as he pushes himself up from those worn porch boards. His old muzzle, it's turned nearly white now. His eyes have gone cloudy around the edges, and sometimes I don't think he hears much until almost is right beside him. But the funny thing is, the moment he hears a familiar boots on the gravel, that old tail starts to thumping on the old porch. Not because his life is easy, not because he's young again, not because you know he's just lazy. It's because love never got old. And if trouble ever pulled into the yard, I don't have a doubt in my mind that old hound would drag every aching bone he owns between danger and the people he loves. He might not be as fast, he might not be as strong, but his purpose hasn't aged one single day. I think about that a lot, because somewhere along the way we started believing wrinkles means worthless. We think a little gray hair and a few scars or tired knees are God's way of telling us to sit down and be quiet. I don't believe that for one second. The world still needs grandparents who pray. It still needs people who know how to encourage somebody who is ready to give up. It still needs men and women who've walked through hard times and come out the other side with enough wisdom to light the path for someone else. Purpose don't retire. Sometimes it simply changes jobs. That old hunting dog can't cover 10 miles of woods anymore, but he can still love, he can still protect, he can still be faithful. And maybe that's what mattered all along. So if you've been telling yourself you're too old, you're too tired, you're too broken, you're too late, take one look at that old gray faced hound dog laying there on the porch. His step might have slowed, but his heart never did. And maybe yours doesn't have to either. Thank you guys for spending a little time with me here on the front porch. If today's story reminded you of someone you love, a grandparent, an old friend, or maybe even yourself, I hope you'd share it with them. And remember this: gray hair isn't the end of your story. Scars aren't proof you're lost. They're proof that you stayed in the light. Until next time, keep your coffee warm, your face strong, and your heart pointed toward home. I'm Mark Morgan, and this has been the Front Porch Lessons. Thank y'all.